everyone, and welcome to BullCaster, a talk show for crypto bulls. Here we are to discuss most exciting industry topics with the best industry experts, influencers, and remarkable personalities. I'm Konstantin Kogun, co-founder of BullPerks, and today's topic is Metaverse Interoperability. So we're excited to welcome Chinka Gupta, who is CEO of ArcadeNetwork, the world's first decentralized platform providing cross-metaverse asset interoperability. She is experienced in blockchain architecture for 7 years, working in the top 4 companies, and predominantly engaged in delivering advanced blockchain and gaming financial solutions for the clients, and then create ArcadeNetwork, which I'm sure most of the bulls are familiar because that was the deal also that we listed and we worked closely. So without further ado, hi Chinka, really good to have you here.
Hi Konstantin, nice to meet you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, so maybe in really few words you can tell about a little bit about your background and the context of how did you end up getting excited about specifically blockchain and then transition to a metaverse angle.
Yeah, I think thank you for introducing me, and you pretty much covered it. But just to give a heads up, I currently am I'm the CEO of ArcadeNetwork, as Konstantin mentioned, and so my journey starts from being a developer. So I come from a developer background. I started off with Accenture as my first company, and then moved to Big Fours for consulting, and wherein I actually got a chance to actually get into blockchain space and consult the clients. I extensively worked with the government sector, the insurance sector, wherein I got a chance to be involved in the blockchain products and to kind of consult these clients of how exactly to architect these products and where exactly blockchain would fit into the picture. So I think that's where my interest in blockchain journey started. And then I eventually entered into crypto, and coming to eventually coming to ArcadeNetwork, this was something which we started off with the gaming world. We wanted to bring interoperability in gaming, but then eventually taking the feasible step first, we landed to Metaverse Interoperability concept with ArcadeNetwork. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
And that's very interesting because the market right now, the metaverse market is worth 478 billion, according to some maskers, right? And then they say that it's going to grow to 800 billion. Now, there are skeptics who are saying that these even the valuation of the market is wrong right now, because we're not talking about the actual revenues, right? But based on the opportunity, right? We're talking about opportunity costs. Right now, it's still very early, right? And there are more than 160 companies are developing their own metaverse. I'm sure there are going to be much more, and they will have to speak to each other somehow. So with this said, what's your vision of the current state of the metaverse industry today?
All right. As per the numbers provided by you, I think based on one of the recent report by McKinsey, which is one of the big 3, so already somewhere around 158 billion had been invested in the first 6 months of 2022 in the metaverse. So and we know this fact because anyhow now metaverse coming into the limelight, now big shots coming into the metaverse industry. Not only the last time we talked, I understand it was just Meta. Now, everybody is kind of coming up in metaverse, and they actually see potential in it, and that's why they want to invest in metaverse infra and in metaverse standards. So I think the evolution journey of metaverse had already begun early in 2022, and I see, I actually, considering the value that we can get, it's like getting real value in the virtual world. That's what metaverse is, right? So considering the value that you can generate in the metaverse world, that certainly is gonna draw a lot of investments, and the numbers are anyways gonna increase. So I strongly support this concept of metaverse, and I think anyhow everybody is placing their bets on the metaverse industry now.
So this brings us to another interesting, I would say, differentiation, right? So we're talking about interoperability and like why is that important, and then there's a concept of centralized and decentralized metaverses, right? We see that there's a real challenge of like how will they work together, and like some companies choose like Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, like and others to go one direction, and there are more like decentralized ways how people try to create their world. So I'm curious, what's your take on it? Like, what's going to be the interoperability like between the metaverses?
I mean, when we are talking of this concept of metaverse, I think essentially it means that you're mapping reality, this physical world, into a virtual world. That's what you're doing. Now, think of it this way: if we have, we have Apple in 3D. Now we want to take it to 5D. Apple certainly is interacting with a lot of its consumers, and there are other stakeholders as well. So probably if you are asking, or if you are talking about taking the entire, real world to the virtual world, then certainly you would be needing those connections to establish those connections. And how do you do that? That's where the concept of interoperability comes into picture. Now, again, there are several layers of interoperability. There are several aspects of at what level or at what domain you want to provide interoperability to. For example, if I talk about a bit, so there is multi-domain interoperability, and then there could be a targeted domain interoperability. So that depends of how you are moving or taking it forward. But I think anyhow, like if you are talking about these big visions, anyhow, to take it forward, to run the metaverse economy, you need connections, and hence I think you need interoperability. That's the need. You cannot really bypass it.
So what are their limitations and restrictions right now? Like, I'm just curious to hear, because as you mentioned, like we can talk about interoperability of avatars, services, certain features or assets or storage and APIs, right? So in your opinion, if you would define like top 3 challenges, right, that we're facing today, and maybe you can talk about a little bit like what's going to be in the future.
I think, I can talk about based on what we experienced. So maybe the challenges which I see right now are basically, obviously there are tech challenges. So, and when I say tech challenges, they are at every layer. So your graphic layers bear some challenges, then the semantics, then the infra, then basically the, as you mentioned, centralized and decentralized metaverses. So basically the blockchain they are running on, that again itself brings in the concept of bridging different blockchains, and then the blockchain interoperability and stuff like that. I think the major challenges are going to be data privacy or security. These are also some things which would creep into future. Which would creep in this metaverse interoperability industry, and certainly you just cannot go ahead and when we are talking of mapping the entire world into a virtual world, all those security protocols, and you'll have to take care of all those cyber threats. And I think the other challenge that I see right now is adoption. That anyways exists in any new thing that comes up. However, mentioning that, the way this industry had been evolving, anyhow, I think the tech barriers or the ease of use for the users, if it's provided, anyhow the number of users can be increased, and we suddenly can overcome these challenges. So it will take its time, but I think it certainly would happen.
Mm-hmm. So maybe let's talk about really quickly, like, what are the lessons you've learned, and what is your perspectives? Like, what do you think? And maybe you can explain again one example of interoperability that you can see, like, that's like there's a challenge and you actually see like how it's going to be solved, and then what's going to be maybe the future development and future advancement of technological progress of where we're going right now?
Well, I think, okay, so I mean, what we are doing right now, Metaverse itself is a huge thing. So it consists of AI, blockchain, AR, VR, and these are just the technologies I'm mentioning. So there are other components as well. You know, people are associating it with different domains like gaming, e-commerce, and then there are digital avatars that comes into picture. Cryptocurrencies comes in. So it's a mixture of all these components. What we are trying to do, we just are, as I mentioned, we just have taken a small step by providing interoperability in the gaming metaverses. But I think it's pretty much the structure remains more or less the same. So the challenges which we could face initially were again the adoption challenges. I mean, it was pretty much different, difficult to convince the metaverse giants to be actually adopting interoperability. And I think one of the reason could be the monopoly that they would lose. So anyhow, the early movers advantage was taken, and now we all know the number of users and the the value that they are making out of these users. Anyhow, if we open up this interoperability concept and merge the entire ecosystem, we this is going to be a sustaining ecosystem wherein codependencies and interdependencies will have to be introduced. But at the same time, I think we need wide support from these tech giants as well, from the metaverse giants as well, to be coming in and pulling in into this concept of metaverse interoperability. Talking about the other challenges that we faced, there were more of like the challenges wherein these metaverses were developed and then changing, no standardization basically. So changing their entire code would have been difficult. So ideally, our solution was to wrap our product into a SaaS-based product so as to provide them this thing, the interoperability or the bridge thing as a service. However, it's more of like a protocol or a standard that we were building. So yeah, I think that's about it.
Any predictions you can share what's going to happen in the nearest time with, let's say, when the technology is going to work and all the, the protocols will talk to each other, that there'll be no battle for the ecosystem and chains, and it will be easily like move from one token to another and then exchange assets, like, maybe some other interesting things that let's dream a little bit. Let's try to give people like some exciting part. What's going to happen in the near future that will actually work to their benefit and solve some problems?
Well, I think with this coming of Metaverse Standards Forum, wherein we have all these major participants pulling in. Anyhow, the standardization of the industry has started, though very recently, but again, it has been started. So I clearly would go with the numbers, as in they say by 2030 will be, not even by 2030, by 2025, they predict that half of the 2D apps would be in metaverses. So I think I strongly place my bets over there. And in terms of, and actually you will, I mean, eventually when we are investing this much in the metaverse industry, and eventually if you see the concept is you are anyhow overcoming this concept of time and space if you are into metaverse. So you conquered time and you conquered space, if everything could be in metaverse. So I think this entire idea is super huge. So anyways, obviously, I mean, you'll need infra, you'll need standardization, because if you're talking of taking these big steps, there had been ideas of the dating websites coming on metaverses. So people meeting virtually, and this pandemic thing, playing hide and seek. I think it's something which has increased the interest for such concepts. It is already there. All we need to do is I think we all we need to do is like make the user interface as easy as possible, because the concept of metaverse still is kind of new for the non-crypto world. So I think to bring them there, you actually have to remove all types of resistances that are anyways present today.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, people are getting married in metaverses soon, so like I'm sure there's a lot of other applications.
There was this first metaverse wedding reception function that happened in India. So it was in south of India, and it was the first wedding reception that happened on metaverse, and 6,000 users already attended it. So yeah.
Good. So now soon it's gonna be millions. Maybe we'll see. Like, it's gonna be big weddings. So expensive.
Right. You can invite the entire world. Yeah.
And ask for a small gift, like not a lot, like maybe like a $100 gift as they come, you pay for the attendance, and then that becomes a very good.
And you save the cost as well. I mean, you save the space and everything. You call as many users as you want.
Exactly.
But then you are allowed to take gifts.
And then like birthday parties, like graduation. There's a lot of interesting things you can do. But okay, so there's a lot of things we can discuss here, but I thank you like for sharing your vision and experience with us. Like I want to go to the community, right? For them to ask their questions. There's a lot of live questions already, so we just collected some of them. So I'm gonna read them to you, and yeah, we'll be happy to hear more of your expertise and vision on this. So Lane from YouTube is asking, so do you see the future of interconnected metaverses, decentralized or centralized? Will agents or corporations be secure in this interoperation? It's an interesting question. So basically, do you see the future is centralized or decentralized for the interconnected metaverses?
I mean, if the question is that is the future gonna merge the centralized and decentralized metaverses, I think technically that is very much possible. So you anyhow can make use of technology to connect those. And also, if we are talking about metaverse interoperability, then removing the concept of it means you are working at the core level. It means you are working at the basically through all the layers of metaverses and through all those metaverses domains of metaverses. So anyhow, I
think he's asking also about the agents or corporations, so securing the maybe data, right? So it's a question more of a broader, not talking about philosophical, economical stance, right? But also about like who do you think will take care of the data, right? Because somebody needs to take responsibility for providing, right? The world will exist, right? So in your opinion, will we get to the fully decentralized model, or it's going to be like a hybrid?
I think it's going to be hybrid, and that's what we mentioned about, and that's what we talked about. So coming off these standards forum, they are actually the standardization forum wherein you can actually put in some regulatory practices as well, because you'll have to, if you are talking about the threats of metaverses, of interconnection of these metaverses, then data privacy and security are definitely these are gonna come in. So that's where these forums and these groups would come into picture.
There's also an interesting question. Omar from YouTube is asking, hello, Chinka. Got a quick question. What is the real aim of external metaverse interoperability? Is it realistic to expect a metaverse that everyone will be a part of?
Can you repeat the question for me? Sorry.
So that's what is the real aim of external metaverse interoperability, right? And is it realistic to expect a metaverse that everyone will be a part of? So the second part is probably pertaining to the question, was there an opportunity for a one dominant metaverse that will actually embrace everyone, right? And then the first part is I don't know, external metaverse interoperability. I'm not sure what's the differentiation between external and internal. Maybe you can answer.
I think so. It's not that. I do not see it that way. So basically, it's not just one parent metaverse which is holding these child metaverses. Nothing like that. I see metaverse as just a mapping of so the place that I'm putting in, I can put that in metaverse as well. Your office could be in metaverse. So it's simply, I think, now people creating their own metaverses, and it's as simple as that. There are shops or there are brands, and they keep on providing you different services. So different brands or different shops or different stores open up, they keep adding different services to them. So it's as simple as that. You are so there are going to be different mappings, and these mappings, I won't call it I mean, I know people even today, like people are confused in this concept of metaverse. Ideally, if we are talking of it, it basically means you are just mapping reality, the 3D world, into a virtual world. And when we are talking of interconnectivity or interoperability of these metaverses, that simply means that you are connecting everything, every entity that is there in the virtual world, and they can actually talk to each other.
Got it. Yeah, I think it's an interesting and fair assumption. And so there Nakamoto-san from YouTube is asking, what is the real purpose behind achieving interoperability? What should users expect to happen from a consumer point of view? Will it take the metaverse to the next step? Again, maybe some examples that you can provide, like on a consumer level, that'll be easy. Like, for example, I go to buy an asset in one metaverse, and I need to transfer it or swap to another asset in a different metaverse, right? Right now, that's not possible, right? So you can help with this and maybe some other practical examples.
Right. So there's something called as agglomeration effect. That means that people or entities will have to join if they want to sustain in the longer run. So this concept of interoperability of metaverse is similar. Basically, think of it as different countries, maybe. Now these countries, if you cannot move out of New York and you cannot enter into Dubai, that basically that is stopping a lot of that's restricting a lot of growth opportunities and potentials that might happen if countries open up to each other. So basically, it's similar to that. Interoperability means, I would say, globalization in terms of metaverses. So basically, you're opening up metaverses, creating different opportunities, helping, maybe making users. It's both ways. I mean, it's not just the users, but the metaverse owners as well. So ideally, you are just interconnecting these countries or these metaverses and kind of building, I would say, unleashing various things that can actually happen only if you open up or if you only can talk to these other metaverses.
Mm-hmm.
So this world, as in like this economy is growing. I mean, we call, the economy is sustaining. The fact that the entire world is sustaining, and globalization has a big part in it to play. So you can think of it, it in terms of metaverses as well.
That's an interesting concept, and this brings us to another question, which I don't know, it's a nickname, Entertainment TV from YouTube. Are there any universal facts agreed upon what an interconnected metaverse will be? Would you want a council of approved actors to decide on the future of the metaverse? I mean, you talked a little bit about it, about like the organization, right, so that is trying to create like certain standards, right? Do you think maybe we need to have several bodies, like create like a real government structure, and how it will work in the future? Maybe what's missing in your opinion?
I mean, Metaverse Standard Forum anyhow has have got all the major players of the market. So Apple, Facebook, and whatnot are basically the founding members. So I think that if there are the other upcoming metaverses, and if we are kind of sticking to one standard, I don't think you essentially need a government entity to be regulating it, because ideally the founding members can do that in order to prevent any sort of malicious activity in metaverses, which obviously would arise if we are talking of development of the space. But in order to take care of that, I think you anyhow can have some regulations and some standardizations, and that's what is the aim of this regulatory or standard body. So I don't think you essentially need government into it unless they decide to peep into.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting perspective. So Raja, I'm trying not to mispronounce his name. Raja Hapur from YouTube. Are there any companies or projects that manage to achieve true internal interoperability? What did they do right, and what can be done?
I mean, I really don't know about the other companies, but we have already done that, and we are in our integration phase, and that's what our aim was, to try it at the gaming metaverses level first. And I'm pretty sure that there must be other companies who might be coming up with their own standards or with their own solutions for achieving interoperability. But all it requires is essentially it requires some standards to follow, and essentially I would say it requires you to be partnering up with the metaverses.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. So we have like tons of questions, but I will try to narrow it down to other few key ones. So I would say Glitch Trap from YouTube is an interesting question. What should I expect my current avatar, maybe like in the central, to also work in the sandbox? And are these companies and other willing to accept and support the future of the metaverse in terms of business? So basically, he's asking, like, like with your help, would that be possible to swap like avatar from Decentraland to Sandbox? Simple example.
Well, that is very much possible, but again, this is, if we're talking of the avatars, basically we're talking of the graphics. We again are touching these three layers, which are semantics, behavior, and presentation layer of the metaverses. However, the only challenge that I mentioned, early as well in the call, that usually these metaverses which are fully established, the interoperability with them kind of is difficult, because essentially you would have to they would have to follow a certain standard. Think of it this way: you already have built something, built a let's say a palace, and now I'm asking you to use a different kind of brick or concrete. So essentially you'll have to do some changes that could kind of be difficult. But then there are technically there are solutions to it, wherein the APIs and pluggable solutions come into picture. But talking of the answering to his initial question, wherein if the avatars could be same, that is very much possible. I mean, that can, although right now no company is doing that, because anyhow it involves a lot of investment at the graphic level as well and presentation level as well. So but ideally that is something which is achievable, and that's what metaverse interoperability in one of its domain is focusing upon as well.
Got it. And see, just the last kind of the famous last words, like anything like ArcadeNetwork, maybe some exciting things that you're preparing for, like, and we should be looking out for in this particular realm of thoughts.
I think one thing which is exciting for everybody is ArcVerse, which is metaverse as a service solution. So we are coming out with that. We already are in our testing phase with that. And anyhow, the bridge is completed for the businesses, and we are integrating that, and shall be soon out for the users as well, to experience how it looks like when you actually transfer your assets from metaverse, but the gaming metaverse.
Perfect. I think that'll be a perfect demonstration of the practicality of what you guys are doing. And I think I've learned a lot today, and I think for now, we're trying to narrow down to this part, because there's a lot of information. The word interoperability is already complicated for a lot of people. So we want to really thank you, Chinka, for your expertise and for being with us. We want to see you more. And thank you everyone for joining BullCaster today. So you can listen to us, at 3 p.m. UTC on YouTube Live, or LinkedIn Live, Twitter Live, all the lives that you can possibly find, right? Every other 2 weeks. And again, please ask your questions even online when we're going to post this episode. I'm sure like if there's some more questions you're going to come up with, Jinka will just like answer in the comments and we'll direct it to her. But now, as of now, like we really appreciate your time, Jinka. It will be really interesting to see the demo of how it will practically work.
Sure. Thank you all, and thank you, Konstantin, for having me here.
Thank you so much.